Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
You're on mute now, okay. All right, so for our topic tonight, I feel like you haven't let us off with a pun, like a pre-topic pun in a while, or like fucked with me a bit yet. But anyway, while you're eating and muted, I will dominate a little bit. Tonight's topic is image. I kind of wanted to talk about self-image, and so like everything that entails. I think
you really need to have a good camera and make sure your settings are right, and then you can make sure that your self-image is really, really the best it can be.
Yeah. Of course. There you go.
End of conversation.
Yeah. No, I think that there's a few things. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think of that image is, I think everyone has an idea of what they project to the world, and I think that very few people are probably correct about what that is. I think self-awareness there's obviously self-awareness in trying not to be hurtful to others, and that kind of self-awareness, being like, I'm not gonna say shitty stuff, or not, there's that kind of self-awareness. But there's also the, like, have we made any statements that have been useful?
I think you should use a really good lens.
Well, can you hear the train through my microphone? Oh, the train on Davis, you can hear it from my house, like honking the fucking horn.
You can hear Apex train from outside my house, but not usually in the house.
It's probably the same train, right? It's got to be.
Probably.
Yeah. Sarah said to me last night when we were driving near your neighborhood. We were coming 55 up Holt, and Sarah was like, "Is it weird to you that we live this close to Matthew and you basically never see him in person?" And I was like, "No, it's because of the pandemic, and we haven't really gone back to fully doing stuff, and we don't have a house that we can entertain in, and so I'm like, no, it's not that weird." But that's just my self-image. I don't know. Maybe you think it is weird, but
I think you're weird.
Yeah, well, I am. So
there you go. So image is correct.
Image is correct.
Yeah. So I had a manager once at my old company who, at one point, was in HR, and she taught workshops on image. And she would have you like kind of write your, what do you, kind of like an epitaph, like when you're gone, when you leave the company, what do you want? How do you want people to have described you?
Yeah.
And she says you should have that, and you should pin it up in your cube or on your desk or whatever, and look at it all the time. And everything you do, every interaction you're about to have, say, will it foster that? Will people say that about me? What do I need to do to have people say that about me?
And then you answered, he was a crusty old Nazi.
He fucked everyone.
Man, woman.
If when I walk in the room, the fish stops swimming in the fish tank. Anything that moves, target.
Yeah.
So I lost that job.
Do you think that you have a pretty accurate self? Do you think the image that you're projecting, is it what you do you think that you understand what the image is that you're projecting?
Yeah, I don't care anymore. I got to the point where I don't give a crap anymore. I don't try to project an image. I don't try to manage up. I don't try, like, oh, you think I'm doing a bad job? I don't care. I'm doing the job I want to do. I don't care. I'm beyond caring.
I'm like, I would say I'm on step one of that. Like, still, like, I'm getting there. I'm almost 40, and oh my god, yesterday I had to log into an HR portal for work, and it says your exact age, and it was like 39, 3 months, and 5 days, and I'm like, all right, that is too specific.
That's offensive.
I don't want to know that. But no, I'd say that, like, a lot of my care is gone, but I am curious sometimes how people see me, because I think that in some way, there's certain circumstances in which I think I have a very good idea of what my image is. So, like, Sarah, I think I know what Sarah sees when she sees me. Not, I don't understand why why she thinks I'm sexy, but like when she like sees me as a person, not just as a slab of meat. Like what I think I understand who the person is that she connects with. I'm less certain when I talk to family. Like I don't know that they see me the way that I am a lot. Like
I think it's fair to say that very few people see you the way you see you or the way you think
want to be
you
seen.
are.
Yeah,
Maybe they see you the way you want to be seen if you're good at putting
yeah,
on the right act for them.
true.
But I mean, I think there is a certain amount of we, most people, I don't overgeneralize, but people tend to uh, act in different ways with different people. Like you're different around Sarah than you are with your mom. It's just
Yeah,
you have a different relationship. You're different. You talk about different things. You prioritize
well,
different things. You know, like when you're with your mom, you're not talking about issues with Logan. You're worried about this, getting him to school on time. Like it's not
yeah,
you don't talk about parenting things as much. Just even things like that. Like not even deep things, just the kind of conversations you have with your coworkers are different than you have with your friends. They may overlap, right? There may be things like, oh, I had this
yeah.
conversation at work, but half the time at work you're talking about work. So
Less
so
than
you're
half.
going to get a different view of people, anyway.
Yeah,
And then sometimes the key is the awareness of it. Like, do you cultivate an image, and do you want to cultivate an image? I mean, sometimes you just don't. And I
yeah,
think there's a different level of where you are in your life and what you value, and that determines how much you care about the image you have and how much you cultivate an image.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that there is an image that I used to try to cultivate, and I can find myself falling back into that on occasion. With the stories that I would tell about my time in my late teens, early 20s, you get into these stories when and I think that I really built up this image that I would try to project. And I don't know that I ever had anybody convinced that I was like a bit of a rebel who did my own thing and didn't give a fuck. And I think that there is no part of me that has ever been that. And I think that I convinced myself at one point that I was that. And in doing so, I then started trying to project it, even though it was never the case. And I kind of am curious because sometimes I'll tell a story of something that I did, because there was times when I would like be spiteful and do shitty things to people who maybe deserved it. Like I had a manager I had a manager at Verizon who was a bad person. But she wasn't my manager; she was the store manager, and I didn't technically work for the store. I worked at the store, so she wasn't technically my manager. So I had a little bit of leeway, and I just thought she sucked. I didn't like her. She was a pain in my ass, but she was also like genuinely, I think, a bad person. Like she didn't let a pregnant woman take a fucking break, and I got pissed, and I would like just mouth off basically. And I think that I started telling people the story, trying to make myself sound like a badass. And I think it was more like I don't give a shit because I hate this job. I don't
What are you
like
going
this
to do? Fire
person.
me from a job I don't like?
I don't like this person. I'm basically on my way out anyway because like there was all the factors that, have you ever heard the speech about Superman's not brave because nothing can hurt him? I think it's from Angus or something.
I don't think I've
It's
heard the speech,
similar.
but I've thought
Yeah.
that many times. Right? Yeah.
It was similar. Like none of these things really
If you're not
affected me.
afraid, then you're not brave. If you're not
Right.
overcoming fear,
Right.
then you're not doing anything
Exactly.
brave.
Exactly. So I said one day she was like, she would, this woman comes in and she was telling us about whatever new fucking thing we had to start telling the customers. And I said, is there any like line that you wouldn't cross if they asked you to cross it? And she's like, yeah, no, I wouldn't do, like, I'm not just a company person. I wouldn't just do whatever they tell me to. And I'm like, I don't believe you. And she she was like, well, what do you mean? What do you think that I would do? And I said, I think if they brought in hats with dildos on them, I said dildo. I said, I think if you brought in hats with dildos and told you to make us wear them, you would then tell us, well, it points the customer in the right direction of what, like you would come up with some excuse. And she was horrified. And I was really entertained by this because I did not give a fuck. But about the job, like it wasn't because I was like, I wasn't like Robin Hood or something like where I was avenging people, even though that's what I convinced myself of. And when I would tell that story, I would try to convince other people of that. But like ultimately, it was like I had a bad attitude in the right direction, but I had a bad attitude. I hated the job. I was not in the most mentally healthy place. It wasn't a matter of me being I wasn't taking some principled stand, but I would make you think that, or I would try to make you think that when I was telling that story for a long time. And I find myself every once in a while coming back to stories like that and telling it and then being like, am I trying to make myself sound like a badass? Because I have never been a badass. I've been bad and I've been an ass, but I've never been a badass. You know?
Yeah.
Have you ever I know that you're at the age now, like you said,
Yeah.
where you're
Me.
not trying, but have you ever
Me.
been at an age where you were trying to project something and you maybe convinced yourself at the time and now you think it isn't correct?
Well, I mean, I think we all have many facets,
Yeah.
and there are times there are certainly times I heighten one facet over another in one situation or another. And if people think that's always me, then they're wrong. But
Right.
it's not me. It's just an aspect of me that I use sometimes. So, I mean, an example is just when I'm when I taught improv, when I was teaching, I would take things very seriously and be very respectful, because I was trying to be a teacher attitude. Even though we're teaching comedy, I wasn't cutting up and I wasn't cracking jokes. But then as soon as we went into rehearsal mode, and even though I'm the director of my group, I didn't need to, I was respected by my skill and my ability, not because I played the role. And then I would let those, I would drop, and we'd let people eventually, like after taking 2 or 3 rounds of our workshops, and I think they might be able to join the group. I'd say, if you want to stay and watch rehearsal, you can, and they'd be like, see a completely different me than because I was in a different mode, which is
Yeah.
not the same mode I am when I'm in the house too, because even it was heightened with more jokes and more humor than my normal everyday, and neither of them were fake, but neither of them
Right.
were the complete picture.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
I
I
remember
wonder. So
as a
I have the very heightened different modes too. I can be very quiet and reserved, uh, and like I can go a long time without talking. Logan a couple months ago, Logan told me to shut the fuck up while we were playing Fortnite, and I didn't speak for hours. And Sarah was like, "What
was
is?"
it because you cried during the Fortnite song?
No, but it was he was being silly. He wasn't even being like a jerk. He was just being silly and said, "Shut the fuck up." And I was like, I wonder how long it will take him to realize that I am not talking. And it was hours. And it wasn't him that realized. It was Sarah asked me something, and I went, and I just was
What do you
like,
want for dinner? Hmm.
and she was like, "Why are
Do
you
you
not
love
talking?"
me? Hmm.
She was like, "Why are you not talking?" And I said, "Oh, he told me to shut the fuck up." And so I said, neither of you noticed that I didn't talk because I can go a good portion of time. However, I'm manic depressive, so I can get very up and hyper too, and I can be like off the wall, and that's me too. And with Logan, I worry about projecting an image to him because I have to be careful. Sometimes, like obviously we've talked about it before. I let him swear. I don't care about a lot of the social or the norms that we as a society have decided. I don't care about a lot of that, but there's other ways in which I do. Um, but like at the same time, like there's certain things that I like am really careful about, and what I don't want. I kind of go back. I don't know if you remember Stephen Colbert when he left the Colbert Report. A big reason why he gave for wanting to leave was that he was worried his kids were going to see him on TV every night and be like, "Oh, my dad's a really good liar and he's really good at doing this." And like, how do I not know how do I know he's not lying when he says he loves me? And so I kind of came in. I think that that's an extreme version when you're acting like that. But I also think Logan's young, and I don't necessarily want to project too far from what I really am, especially when if I if I sit down and think about it, do I think that what I'm projecting is a good thing either? Like obviously, if I'm projecting a kindness beyond my actual kindness, then that's not necessarily a problem. But if I'm projecting that I'm a badass when I'm not really a badass, or I'm projecting that I'm fearless, unless there's a good reason for it to, to teach him a lesson, like, hey, it's
Get out there and play in the street. Come on, don't be afraid of cars.
no, we're gonna go on a roller coaster, and like, or whatever,
Right. That's not being fearless. It's overcoming fear. It's
right.
okay to be afraid of that, but we know it's going to be safe and we know it's going to be fun, so we have to do it anyway. We don't
Yeah.
have to. We choose to do it anyway. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think I've ever given you parenting advice, but I will now. No, I won't give it to you. I will just say, here's the parenting advice that I've given to people because it was given to me. I asked someone who I thought was a great parent. I thought that she had when Jacob was born, I guess she had like an 8-year-old and twin 7-year-olds, and they were all delightful kids. I really liked her kids, and I said to her, "What's your secret to parenting?" And she said, "You got to hit them really hard." No, what she said was her husband and she decided what they wanted their kids to be as adults, what values were important to them. Do they want them to be successful businessmen? Do they want them to be honest and sweet? Do they want them to be sweet? They want to be good citizens? Like, what did they want? What did they value? What things did they value? And they treated the kids with that way themselves. They modeled that, and they held the expectation of that for their kids from day one, knowing obviously baby toddler cannot meet the expectations, but there wasn't a day when suddenly being polite is important at age 7 where it wasn't at age 6. There was always a thing. They were always reinforcing that, if that was a thing, whatever their things were, they were reinforcing all along. But a big thing was also they were showing it. Like if they wanted their kids to be kind and loving, so they smothered their kids with hugs and kisses, and they were affectionate, with each other in front of their kids because they thought that was an important thing to be, because um, the father's parents were like stoic and didn't show emotion. Like they used to reprimand the kids for being holding hands or hugging too much. Like brothers and sisters shouldn't hug so much, and so they were like they knew that the father had that issue kind of sometimes, a reluctance to be affectionate because he had been told not to his whole life.
Yeah.
And they didn't want their kids that way. So they were extra affectionate, which in sometimes for the dad was playing a role. Like he wasn't comfortable while he was doing it. He was overcoming his discomfort for the beginning years to do it. So, and I think that's, so that's an example with parenting, but it's the same with anyone you're trying to instill a corporate culture with, people you work with, people in your comedy group, people in our shared business. The way we behave to each other is going to dictate how we behave to each other, and that's important.
Yeah, yeah, that's good advice. I would say that I have been doing that. Sarah and I had a discussion a long time ago about Logan, and we want him to be kind, happy, and healthy. And those are the 3 things we want in his life. And, we've mentioned that to people, and they're like, well, what about successful? And I'm like, if he's kind, and he's happy, and he's healthy, he would be by default successful. If he's happy and healthy, he's successful.
Successful doesn't have to mean rich or in a high-powered job. It's happy and healthy. That's successful.
Yeah.
And kind, because you don't want to do it at the expense of others, because then you're just an ass.
Yeah. And so I think we've done that, and I think that even though we don't have a problem with him swearing. We've always, I've always been really clear about, like, there's a difference between, oh, this is a fucking great pizza, and fuck you, you fucking.
I'm eating your pizza.
Yeah. So I'm like, you have to be, just because we say words, we have to be nice and kind, and I've been really strong with him about that.
Yeah, all 3 of my kids were crazy WWE watchers, so so we used to wrestle all the time, do wrestling moves on each other all the time. The real thing was they did do them on me, not each other, because they couldn't hurt me and they could hurt each other. So it was always Jacob and Joseph were a tag team against me. They weren't allowed to fight with each other because I didn't want them accidentally hurting each other. So till they were old enough to understand violence and control.
Yeah.
And they are going to see SmackDown in February in Charlotte. Here's Jacob, Big Brother, little proud Big Brother story. He saw an advertisement that SmackDown was coming to Charlotte, so he bought tickets for him and Joseph, and then called up and said, "Joseph, you need to take off from work this weekend, and in February, whatever weekend it is, and take the train down and come visit me. I'm taking you to see SummerSlam."
Nice.
Sorry, SmackDown.
Yeah. I saw something for WWE. I was on Ticketmaster today because Logan really liked the Hornets, and I was like, oh, we should go see if the Hornets are cheap again. But yeah.
So while you're looking, do you think it's dishonest to intentionally show only one side of yourself to someone when you know there's more?
I think it depends on context. I think if if I was only showing one side of myself to Sarah, if I was like, oh, I'm this nice guy, and
I like that's the fake side of yourself. The nice guy's the fake side.
But I'm this nice guy, and she's like, oh, Mike is the nicest guy in the world, and then I'm like, out there like smoking cigarettes and other naughty people
Wearing
stuff.
a leather jacket and
naughty like Jeffrey Dahmer. That's a joke for Sarah. She one time referred to Jeffrey Dahmer as naughty because she didn't. Because we were in. When you get into that kid language,
mm-hmm.
and you're talking to your kids, and and she was saying something, and then we were talking to Jeffrey Dahmer, and she goes, "Oh, he was really naughty," and I was like, "She called Jeffrey Dahmer naughty." Nice. Sorry if I seemed distracted. Sarah just texted me because she took Logan to the movies so we could record, and he lost his first tooth. It's technically his second. He had one pulled because it was impacted, but this is his first tooth to come out naturally.
Uh-huh.
And he's fucking old, so like,
yeah,
I'm a little sad because I feel like he's about to look like a different kid, but hopefully because he's so old, it won't be that that goofy stage where it's like a tiny little face with adult teeth, and they're like, "This is my smile for the next year and a half."
It's like the Incredible Mr. Limpet.
Isn't that Don Knotts?
Yeah, he had the false teeth in while he was a fish.
I haven't seen it, but I do know.
Really? Oh, surprisingly, it's a weird reference to know if you haven't seen it.
I like Don Knotts. I used to watch Three's Company.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say what I watched that for, but she just died. But all right, this is a long stretch of Patreon. So,
we're talking about Image.
Image. I will say this. Okay, and I'll leave this for the non-patrons. This podcast is the reason why we have Patreon. I know that people probably think it's because of money. A lot of it is anything that I don't want employers hearing is firewalled, basically.
They need to pay to hear. And they just heard us say that. But do you really want to know? Do you really want to hear it? We all say things that you don't want to know your coworker talks about. Don't listen. You don't want to hear it.
I'm getting to the point where I think that
Google pegging, and you'll know you don't want to hear the conversation we just had.
We did not talk about pegging.
It's kitty time.
Oh, but we are going to talk about cat buttholes.
Cat buttholes. It's kitty time. Hey, hello, Belladonna.
Belladonna. She was a wild thing in the early 2000s.
She wasn't even born. She was a little kitten.
No, I mean Belladonna, the adult actress. So, do you have anybody in your life that you think that their that what they think they're projecting and what they are actually projecting is wildly different? Anybody that you care to mention, or you don't have to mention by name or relationship, but like any examples you care to give?
I know I had a specific person in mind. When you said don't say name, I don't have to say name or relationship. I was like, well, how can I position them? And then I realized, oh wait, I know a couple of people just like this. Once I decided to position it non-personally, having performed comedy live in a group settings for decades, there are people I knew who, on both ends of the spectrum, like thought they were 10 times funnier and loved by the audience when they weren't, and people who underestimated how much the audience loved them and how funny they were,
Yeah.
like completely. Even though you would think there's an instant feedback loop, right? People are clapping for you, people coming over the show saying how much they loved you or not coming over after the show. But it's amazing how many people did not have a sense of awareness of how an audience was reacting to them, and
Yeah.
how many people don't want to know. And then
Yeah.
it's always nice that people, who aren't as well received as they would probably like to be, and they don't want to know, but then eventually they ask for a cold, hard third person. I had a former improviser 10 years later reach out to me, and they were living in another city and they were invited to join an improv troupe. And they said to me, was I ever good or did I suck? Because sometimes I think I was good, but sometimes I think I just sucked and I was fooling myself. And because it's a group thing, me, this director, was allowing one person who sucks to be on stage, which I did because there were 10 people on stage at a time. So if two sucked, it didn't make a difference because everyone else carried the slack. And it's a way to get past your suckage, potentially, to be carried for. And I told this person that they were one of the worst improvisers I ever worked with in that type of improv, in that setting. I said, there are times you were brilliant, and it was times when it was a slower, more narrative based, calmer scene versus when I was in comedy sports and it was like the McDonald's of improv, being that it was loved by everyone, very consistent, but it was just turn out the same product over and over again. And it was wham bam, how funny can you be per minute, versus my later improv groups that were more theater based and were more stretched out. I said, if you're looking at it's almost stand up comedy improv group, you don't do that. You're not good at that. But if they're going to do more acting and actually tell a narrative and do a story, you're actually quite good at that. You just didn't have opportunity to do it very much because that's not what we were doing, but that's
Right.
where you were best. And they joined a troupe, and 2 years later were the assistant director of that troupe. And eventually, when the director moved, they became director of the troupe because it was that type of group. And it was one of those things where they couldn't see, they had an idea of how they were seen, but they couldn't see it as accurately as I could from the outside and saying, yes, you weren't good, but here's when you were and here's why.
Yeah.
But part of that's why I'm a director, because I'm good at seeing that in people.
Yeah. You are good at that. I like. Yeah, I've told you this before. I like. I
Big
don't.
butts and you cannot lie.
Um, wow, you're just referencing the title from last week a lot, huh? Or for the last couple of weeks, you mentioned "My Dad Cries at Fortnite." Uh, that's what last week's title was. Oh my God, Becky, look at that art. What I was gonna say is I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I do not like people who do not think I'm funny. Um, it drives
Man,
me.
that's why you hate people so much.
Yeah, no, there's only a couple people. Um, I and sometimes I will say one thing that I'm very self aware of is not always, but sometimes when I have a bad opinion, I am aware of it, or when I am on, um, for example, I know that there's certain people that I just don't like because they don't find me funny. Sarah was in a wedding the year that we got married, and one of the brides, in a wedding season, sometimes you hang out with the bridal party a few times if you're in the bridal party or whatever. We're hanging out with some of the other bridesmaids and the bride and groom, and before the wedding, and this one bridesmaid does not find me remotely funny, and everyone else is like cracking up, and everyone else, and I'm not being like I'm not being obscene or offensive or obnoxious. I'm just
Yes,
being.
you are.
No, I promise I wasn't. And she just does not find me funny. And so Sarah and her best friend, that was also a bridesmaid, hated this woman for other reasons. And I
For
was
other
like,
reasons. It wasn't Sarah didn't hate her because she didn't find me funny. She had
no,
another reason. It was
she.
the child abuse. So it was more that.
They hated her, and then so like in the years that have happened since, whenever someone new comes in, those stories come up, and I'm like, yeah, she sucked, and they're like, well, why did she suck? And I'm like, she did not find me funny, but I'm aware that that's a crazy thing to say. I will also say, and I think I've told this story, possibly. I've told this story. So I had a friend um, who was dating another friend of mine. So I knew him from high school. I knew her from work, and then he got a job for the summer working where I worked, and he started dating this girl. And so, worlds kind of crossing a bit there. Now, that friend from high school liked this girl, or was really good friends with this girl that she and I hated each other. And his girlfriend went to his house one day after work, and was like, I came over like later, and she's like, "Oh, blah 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 was here, and she did not have nice things to say about you. I did not like her, or she said, I did not like her. She did not have nice things to say about you, and she had no good reason to dislike you." And I was like, "Oh no, she has a good reason to dislike me." And so I think I'm pretty good sometimes about that, being like, no, like I would say she was a piece of shit human being, but I was a piece of shit to her. Again, not like, I think I would always tell this story to try to make myself sound cooler than I did. Um, but she was a not attractive woman. And there was another girl that we went to high school with who was also not particularly attractive, and they didn't like each other. And one day, the girl whom I disliked said to the other girl, "You're the ugliest." You listening?
Yep, we're listening.
No, I meant that to her, not to you.
She can't hear you. I got
said,
headphones in.
She said she said to the girl, "You're the ugliest person I've ever seen." And I was like, "Apparently you don't own a fucking mirror." And from that day on, she hated me. And I was like, "That's a pretty good reason."
Good line, though. That's a good line, though.
Yeah, it was I was clever and funny, but I don't know that I was badass, and it was not a nice thing to say. And so when she said that, like, she had no good reason, like, she has a good reason to dislike me. Like,
I mean, what's the reason? While she was insulting someone's appearance, I insulted her appearance. I mean,
yeah,
if she doesn't like people who insult people's appearances, that's a self-hate problem.
yeah. But my point being, I think that I can.
I always feel awkward around people who don't think I'm funny. And it's because being funny is a core part of who I am. As I tell my wife, I'm always funny. Like, everything that happens around me, no matter what it is. You tell me that your cousin died being hit when she was riding a motorcycle, 10 jokes pop into my head. That's why I don't drink a lot, because I want my filter on at all times, because I have to filter through 3 layers at all times. Even for the jokes I release, went through multiple filters before I release them.
Yeah, I have an example of what time that you did not do that. So a friend of mine, when I was working for you, a friend of mine died, and I got the call at work, and I went over to your queue. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I think that you're the type of person I was like, I don't have to filter it.
Yeah,
You can take it.
True.
I know my audience. That's the thing. That's why I have to be sober, so I know my audience, and I can pick the right filters for the right people. I don't have to filter anything for you.
I walked over to you and I said, "Hey, I just heard that a friend of mine died in a car accident. Was killed in a car accident this morning. I think I'm going to go home." And you said, "All right, drive safe." And you, like, 100% made, like, the eye contact and the smile so that I knew it was a joke. And I was like, "All right."
Yes, I use that as an example too, because today in a meeting, somebody told me, somebody like a video meeting, that their cousin died yesterday in a motorcycle accident.
Oh,
And the first thing that popped in my head was the Anthony Jeselnik joke about that. You know,
what?
the Jeselnik joke just about how his brother died in a motorcycle accident.
You are not buying a new motorcycle
We
when
have
there's a perfectly good
in the garage. Yeah. And but I can't make a comment about that. And but then I had to be on the whole time aware that, like, 5 minutes into our meeting, he's just totally engaged in the meeting and he's acting totally normally. And I have to remember, do not make too much jokes. Lightheartedness is okay in our meeting, but I can't make a ha you should laugh at me joke. That. And he just finished saying, like he skipped the his company's holiday Christmas party this morning because it didn't feel right to try to be levity.
Yeah.
Like, he worked from home rather than going to the office where the party was. And I'm like, makes sense. But I said to him, I said, and here's what I didn't say. I said, that's one. What I did say was, that's terrible. I mean, it's one thing about motorcycles that terrifies me is that you could do nothing wrong and someone else hits you and you have no protection.
Yeah.
And And like I think about times when somebody got a truck backed into my brother's girlfriend's Honda, didn't know, like he was trying to trigger the red light sensor and backed up, not knowing her little Honda was behind him, and just crunched her Honda. Had she been on a motorcycle, it would have crunched her.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't say that, but it's a, but that's I just said the he has no protection. He goes, yeah, and he goes, we all ride motorcycles. I ride one, like it's through our whole family. And all I could think of was a friend of mine who was a friend of my dad's, who was an insurance salesman, who said, I never sell motorcycle insurance to women because every woman I ever sold motorcycle insurance to got into an accident right afterwards, and I don't want it to be my fault. So I can't say that to him. Not this week. Maybe next week.
Yeah. I'm an atheist.
I mean, if the jokes are funny, they're funny.
Yeah. No. I would guess that they weren't funny. I would guess that it was just like the
emotional release.
Yeah. So anyway, Image. Any last thoughts? Is it 8:30 right?
No.
No.
Nothing. I'm done imaging.
Okay.
Though a little image advice. Here's what I used to tell. Here's the way that I used to tell people they should treat people at work. They should treat people as if they are one level of status different than them, or exactly the same. Like if you're talking to a management person, if someone higher up than you, it's good to just treat them like they're one level higher. Not that they're a god, not that they're way over you. Like we're almost equals, but I have a little bit of respect for you. A little bit of difference, not respect, because you can respect people anywhere. But I mean, choice of respect, but just deference.
Yeah.
Where if you're talking to somebody who works for you, it's nice to have one little level of I expect a little deference from me, but I'm not going to treat you like you're an underling. We're like when we were working together, we made movies together. We were totally working on a friend level, but with a little bit of I was your boss at the time.
After that first day was a doozy.
What was a doozy about the first day?
You came over and you were like, if you don't suck, I'll give you a good recommendation at the end of this.
That's not good. That doesn't set a tone.
It set a tone. And I remember going home and being like, Sarah, this guy told me if I don't suck. And she was like, it's a temp job. Like when you're done, you'll never
see him.
You'll never see this guy again. You're definitely not going to be business partners with him and doing a podcast 5 years later.
When I was directing, that's my advice for everyone's first show was, so listen, don't worry about doing your best. Just don't suck and be funny kind of be funny sometimes and don't suck. That's all you need. Just don't suck. Get out there. But I think when you try to do your best, you freeze up and you do your worst. Or if you make one mistake, you're in your head that, oh my God, I'm not doing my best. If you're just trying to suck, you can make mistakes and you're still on suck. I think that's your best. The best place to be performing at is just try not to suck.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll do better.
That's good advice on every level.
Yeah, which is why I told you that on day one of working. Just don't suck.
Yeah. And as far as Image, I think that's a good advice.
Good place to end it.
No, I was going to say,
we recommend you just don't suck. And if you suck, don't let anyone know you suck. And don't.
What I was going to say is, as we get, I think I'm getting to that age where I'm old enough now that I'm starting to care less. But ultimately, there is a level of self-image that we all want to project or portray to some extent, and we ultimately, I think it's best if you can just say, hey, like, I don't want you to think I'm a piece of shit, especially in how I treat you. And if you can I can just cut that. Don't worry. I can cut the 2 audio tracks, so I can. I cut out a
loud boomy sound. It's all my glasses that I use to do my joke. To make, my camera I'm using the wrong camera.
Yeah. So
when it rebooted.
Back to the point. I just think that the image. I think that I care a lot less about people's image than I do about how I think they are as a person. Like, if you're nice to me, I don't give a crap if you're cool or you're dweeby or whatever. As long as you think I'm funny and you're nice to me, then I like you for the most part. And I think that that's what we need to learn is how people perceive us is way less important than how they feel about their experience with us, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so it's that time again where I'm going to ask you, if you are watching us on YouTube, please go below wherever it is and click the like, the subscribe, ring that bell so that you get the notifications. If you want to comment in the comment section, that helps us. Tell us,
Good
hey,
for our
like,
self-image.
self-image, dude, you have a shitty haircut and need to start dyeing your graying beard.
I don't know if you're talking to me or talking to yourself.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I think both of our haircuts look okay today. Our beards, man.
My hair looks weird today. It wasn't. I don't do well in winter because it gets all staticky and shit, and I
You
take a
gotta stop
sweatshirt
rubbing
off and
balloons
then
on your head.
yeah. So
If you listen
anyway,
to us in an audio medium, go ahead and do whatever your podcast slinger of choice lets you do, whether it's rate us with a 5-star review, whether it's like us, whether it's share us with your friends. And you know what? Go ahead, go on iTunes, even if you don't use iTunes, just log in, create an account if you have to, and then go on this podcast and give it a 5-star review and make a comment about how much you think the image we project is amazing.
yeah.
Or
Or if you want to support the show and you want to
in
do
a money way,
if you want to give us some money, or you just want to like see all that dirty shit that we talk about,
and there was a lot today.
There was a good portion of this episode that's getting cut.
Different length episodes.
Yeah. If you wanted to support us or hear some
Naughty
extra special shit, you can do it one of 3 ways. You can go on Apple and hit subscribe, which is different than like following or whatever. That subscribe is a $3 option that gives you our show 4 days early on Monday instead of Friday. It gives you an uncensored version of the show, and that's basically the 2 benefits of that. Or you can go on patreon.com/talking about the big stuff, where Matthew can give you the finger for supporting us, because that's a nice thing to do.
I was just counting.
Yeah, I was just counting on my fingers. I got 2 of them.
2 of them.
I don't know why I'm doing British accents.
I did that because you did a British accent, and that's the British version.
Go to patreon.com.
We are international and multilingual.
Yeah. You can go to,
if you would like American and British.
He's going to do this the whole time. If you want to support us monetarily, you can also go to patreon.com/talking about the big stuff. There are 2 options on there, a $3 and a $10. $10 does have some added benefits. Over the $3, it's a lot, there's some weird little stories that didn't really like flow well, so we cut them, but sometimes they're really fun or interesting.
But mostly it's because you have enough money to give us a little extra because you like us.
That is the real reason, because and you will still get the show on Monday instead of Friday if you want it. So those are the ways.
Throw us a couple dollars on Patreon or on iTunes and hear the dirty bits.
Yeah, it's $3 a month. Like, if you subscribe, you probably won't even remember that you subscribed, and like
getting a latte.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, Matthew, you got anything? No?
My internet's cutting in and out. So you stopped. My internet started cutting a little bit, and then you didn't move, and I'm like, I don't know if it's frozen or if it actually cut. Hey, thanks for joining us to talk about the big stuff. It's going to make you look better in front of your friends.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.